Hello friends, welcome to or back to my channel. My name's Haley and today we're going to be talking about all the books I read in July. So July was my best reading month quantity-wise and I would say pretty good quality-wise. I did reach my Goodreads goal of 90 books this month. I think I ended the month on 91 books, so that's super fun. In my head, like, secret goal is actually 150, but last year I only read 102 books total. So I feel like 150 is a little ambitious, but also if I'm already at 91 at the end of July, I think we could totally do it, especially with like the pace I've been reading this year. So I read 16 books this month. I read from 7 different genres, and I honestly had a lot of really great reads this month. I think we're just going to go in order again, just chronological order, because that's easiest for my brain. And I will say I feel like I have already forgotten a lot of these books. So I will do my best to convey my thoughts and small summaries of these books, but don't hold me to giving the best summaries because I have just been no thoughts, head empty all summer. So the first book that I read, I do not have physically, it was an ARC, and that is The Summer of Yes by Courtney Walsh. And this was my first book by this author. This book follows this girl named Kelsey who is in a, like, life or death kind of situation. She gets hit by a car on the sidewalk and she's gonna be fine, she's gonna survive, but her life kind of flashes before her eyes and she kind of realizes, like, oh my gosh, this isn't really what I want my life to be like I need to quit my job and I need to do more stuff. And so she comes up with the idea of the summer of yes, like saying yes to everything. And when she's in the hospital, she meets this lady called Georgina Tate, and she is like the most girl boss of all girl bosses. Like, they teach about her at her college and stuff. And so Kelsey gets it in her head that Georgina is going to do this summer with her. And so then we just kind of follow from there. There is a romance subplot for Kelsey and Georgina, actually. There's like a romance subplot. And this book was really good. Like I said, I've never read from this author before. This is an author that writes clean books, so no cussing, no spice, nothing like that. And I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I just wanted more of Georgina, so we kind of like flipped back and forth, but it was like probably 70% Kelsey and only 30% Georgina, and Kelsey did get a little bit irritating after a while, and I just wanted more of Georgina because I thought her character was really interesting, and I wish we could have gotten more from her perspective. The next book I read is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and I really liked this book. This was my second Abby Jimenez book, and this one follows Brianna and Jacob, who are both ER doctors, and they end up fake dating, and then we go from there. I read this book in a reading vlog, so I will link it down below. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I did really enjoy this one. This was one of my... I feel like I've read fake dating before, but I don't really remember it, and I did get a little irritated as we kept going on about the fake dating. Like, I wanted them to just get over the fake dating and admit that it's real, but according to my friends, that's just kind of how fake dating goes, so I guess I just wasn't used to that. I did really like this one. I gave it 4 stars. If I did half ratings, it'd probably be like a 4.5, but yeah, I did this one, and I can't wait to read the next one in the series. The next book that I read is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And this book was very interesting. So I read this for my summer bingo for a book set in the Jazz Age or the 1920s. And this book follows our main character, what was her name? Cassiopeia. It follows Cassiopeia, and we follow as she wakes this god, this like death god, and they kind of journey across Mexico to help this god restore his power. He's like missing parts of his being and he needs to get them back to restore his full power. This one was definitely interesting. It was a little bit hard to follow at times, and I was kind of doing some research and it was hard to tell if these were like real Mayan gods or kind of legends, like they were made up. I was having a hard time kind of figuring that out, and I don't really know a lot of the lore or like the history of Mayan gods and gods just from Mexico in general, and so I did feel like a little confused at times, and there wasn't much support on the internet, but I did like this one. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine, and if it sounds good to you, like, I would definitely recommend checking it out, but it definitely wasn't the best book for me. The next book I read was Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder, and I also read this in a reading vlog. This book was so incredible. I loved this book. I originally gave it 4 stars, but I feel like I should give it 5 stars because it's like literally one of my favorite books. I can't stop thinking about it. So Lenny is a teacher, and she is a little neurodivergent. She's very quirky. It doesn't outright say it, but you can tell. And she has some stuff in her past that she has like kind of blocked out of her brain from trauma. And so in this book, she's kind of coping with that trauma, and she's also trying to get a life. And she's a huge Friends fan, so she keeps saying the one where I get a life. And so we just follow Lenny as she kind of puts herself out there and just transforms socially and emotionally. This book was so great. I seriously loved this book so much. Lenny was such a fun character, and I think everyone should check this one out. The next book I read was Humor Me by Kat Shook, and this book follows Presley, and she is a late night TV show comedy person. She doesn't do the comedy, she finds the comedy talent for this late night TV show in New York City. And we follow her doing like quite a few different things. Like one of the things she does is she becomes friends with one of her dead mom's best friends, and then we follow like a couple of romance subplots. This book, there was just genuinely a lot going on. There was so many different side plots. It was a little bit hard to keep up with, and it felt kind of like all of the plots were a little underdeveloped because there were so many things. And at the beginning of the book, we're really talking about her job and how she's just an assistant and she like wants to move up in the world. But then we never really revisit that plot line, and I would have liked to see that developed a little bit more maybe than some of the other aspects. I did like it, and I would give this author another try, but for me, this one was just a 3 stars. The next book that I read is How Can I Help You by Laura Sims, and I think this book has a very lot of potential, but I think that this is one of those books where if you know too much, then it's not as good. And so I feel like I went in knowing too much. I think the summary, like the synopsis, gives away way too much. And so I think if you read the synopsis, you're going to be a little disappointed because it's not that exciting, because I feel like I already knew like a lot of the story. So for this one, I would definitely recommend going in as blind as possible. All I will tell you is that our main character is a librarian. All you should really know is that she's a librarian, and she has just moved to this town, and she has created a new life for herself because of something in her past. And really, that's all you should know. I think if you know too much, this one isn't going to be as good. And for me, I feel like it was kind of spoiled a little bit. So I gave it 3 stars. I think if I would have gone in blind, I would have given this one a higher rating. The next book I read was Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker, and this is the sequel to The Simple Wild. I also read this in the reading vlog, the same reading vlog as yours truly. This one just follows Cal and Jonah as they continue on with their relationship. I liked this one, but I definitely thought it drug on for far too long. I was just getting irritated that I was still reading about them and nothing was happening. We do meet like a new cast of characters and new like neighbors and stuff in there where they moved to, but I also kind of just like missed Agnes and Mabel. I thought that they were such great characters in the first book, and I miss them. They are in this book, but just a little bit. So, I mean, this is fine, but if you're not like super dying to read this, I would say you could stop after the first one. I give this one 3 stars. The next book that I read is The Queen of Poisons by Robert Thorogood, and this is the 3rd book in the Marlowe Murder Club series. So we are just following some crazy sleuthing that these Marlowe Murder Club ladies are doing, and yeah, this one was good. It was definitely a little bit unbelievable, like the reveals. I was like, that's a little far-fetched, but it was still really fun. I really enjoy this series. I highly recommend, and I hope that there's more books in the future. And I gave this one 4 stars. The next book that I read was Killjoy by Holly Jackson, and this is the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder prequel. And this follows Pip and her friends at a murder mystery dinner party where they're just kind of like playing out a murder mystery. This book was super fun. It's super short, just a quick little novella. I really enjoyed this, and I really loved how this kind of set Pip up for her project that we follow in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I gave this one 4 stars. The next book that I read was The Wedding People by Allison Espach, and I also read this in a different reading vlog, and this book was good. It is a kind of like found family, find your people, like realize you can make it through the hard times kind of book. But what I did not know going in was that our main character is going to this fancy hotel to kill herself, and not knowing that, it kind of was very startling. I was at the gym on the treadmill and I was like, oh, like, so that's what we're doing. And I think if I would have known that going in, I would have enjoyed the story more. But that just at the beginning, I was like, I don't know if I want to read about this. Like, I'm not in the best place mentally. So just be warned. I think if you know that going in, you're going to enjoy the story a lot more. I mean, our main character, she's at like the lowest low is what she feels. And so she goes to this fancy hotel that she wanted to go to with her now ex-husband. And she goes there to unalive herself. And when she gets there, everybody else in the hotel is there for this wedding. And so then she becomes acquainted with the wedding people, and those people kind of pull her out of her slump and help her realize that life is worth living. So overall, again, great book, great themes, but just make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. For me, it definitely would have been more enjoyable, but I give this one 3 stars. The next book that I read is The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters, and this was our June book club pick, but we didn't meet till July, so of course I didn't read it till the last minute. I literally read it the day of the book club, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. This is a historical fiction, and we're following 2 separate timelines. We're following this Indigenous family from Nova Scotia that goes to Maine in the summers to pick berries, and one summer when they are there, their young daughter gets kidnapped and they cannot find her and they never see her again. And then we're also following another timeline. We're following this girl named Norma, and she's an only child, and she grows up in this affluent family in Maine. And you figure out pretty quickly that Norma is the girl that got kidnapped. Sorry if that's a spoiler. I feel like it's very obvious from the beginning. I liked following the 2 perspectives of one of the brothers from the family and of the girl Norma. I liked the way this story was told. It's set in like the 60s and 70s, and I liked that. I just really thought this was like a beautiful story. I thought it was interesting to only get those 2 perspectives and have them be first person. And so you're hearing these events, but you're only getting those 2 perspectives rather than like a third person omniscient kind of where you can, I don't think that's how you say that word, but like third person where you can kind of hear everyone's feelings. So I definitely thought that was like an interesting choice, but I did really like it. I would recommend this book. Like I said, I think I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, and this book was so beautiful. So this book follows Marcellus, who is a giant Pacific octopus in this aquarium in somewhere in Washington, and we follow Tova, who is the night cleaner at this aquarium, and she soon discovers that Marcellus is way more intelligent than people are giving him credit for, and he's kind of sneaking out of his tank, and she's like, we'll just keep it our little secret. And then we're also following Cameron, who is a 20-something. He's really down on his luck, and he decides that he wants to go find his dad after his mom has like left him. His mom left him when he was a young boy, and he's getting older, and he thinks he knows who his dad is, and he wants to go find him. And so we're following kind of these 2 stories of Tova and Cameron and Marcellus, and getting Marcellus's point of view was such a fun addition to this book. I really loved this book. I loved the characters. I loved the family aspects of this book, and I highly recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I have really been enjoying Ali Hazelwood. This is my 3rd book I've read by her this year, and this one was really fun. So in this one, we're following Elsie and Jack, and Elsie is a physicist. She's an adjunct professor, and it is just running her ragged, and she's barely paying her bills. And so on the side, she also does this fake dating thing to make more money. It's like an app where you just match with someone and you go and like to an event with them. But she has been long-term dating a client from that app, and that client is kind of just doing this because his family is pressuring him. And then Jack, I don't want to give too much away. Like, I feel like I didn't know anything going into this book, and so I don't like want to give too much away. So that's all I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say. Is you need to know about Elsie, and then you'll figure out about Jack. I thought this book was super fun. I really liked this. I read this in like a day or 2, couldn't put it down. I picked this one over Love on the Brain because I've heard that this one is a lot of people's favorites, and so I did really enjoy this one, and I would recommend just like all of Ali Hazelwood's other books. I gave this one 4 stars. The next book that I read was Cool for the Summer by Dahlia Adler, and this book we're following, Larissa. We're following Larissa, and we are following 2 different timelines. So we're following as she's going back to school for her senior year, and then we also are flashing back on the summer that happened before she goes back to school. And when she goes back to school, the famous quarterback hotshot boy that she has had a crush on since like middle school finally starts to notice her and starts like flirting with her. But we also find out that during the summer when she was at the beach, she was having a thing with this girl. And So she's kind of has this girl still like lingering in her mind, and she's like, I don't know, do I like girls? Do I like boys? Like, I don't know what I want. And like, she's kind of having to come to terms with like, do I want this thing with this boy who I've always liked? Like, do I want this girl? Whatever. This book was really good. I really liked it. The only thing that I did not love about this book was just how much like sexual content was in it. Like, not necessarily like explicit smut or anything like that, but it just felt like a lot to me for a YA book. Like, I don't know. I just, when I teach high schoolers, so I'm around like kids this age all the time, and I just really don't like thinking about them doing that kind of stuff, and I really don't think that we should be like promoting that kind of stuff to them in books. Like, obviously they're gonna do it and they're gonna make their own choices, but I don't know, like any sort of like sex stuff more than kissing really in YA books just kind of gives me the ick. And so I had to give this one 4 stars. Everything else really loved, and I would still recommend this, but like just sexy stuff in YA books icks me out, and I just can't condone that, honestly. The next book that I read was It's All Relative by Rachel McGee, and this book was so good. I gave this book 5 stars. This book, we're following a whole cast of characters. I would say at the beginning, our main character is Helena, and Helena is a teacher, and she is about to be on summer break, and she is going to her mom's wedding, and her mom is marrying this guy, and this guy that she is marrying has 3 kids. And to Helena, this family that her mom is marrying into is extremely perfect, and she calls them the perfects, and she just thinks that they don't really like her, and she doesn't think that she can fit into their lifestyle because she's very type B, she's very like Hot Mess Express, and she is just really dreading going to this whole week-long wedding thing that they're having. And so she convinces her coworker Landon, who's her best friend, to come with her to kind of just like be a respite for her. And then when they get there, it turns out that Landon has connections to this family. And also Helena, another problem is Helena has a crush on her future brother-in-law. And so it is a messy story, but it is so beautiful. It is all about family and friendship and relationships and second chances and love. And it is so beautiful. It's like love in all the forms, like mother, daughter, like romantic, friendship, sibling. Like, it's just very pure and fun, good times. You get to hear from multiple characters throughout the book, so it's not just told from Helena's perspective, which was enjoyable. And this one just really resonated with me. Helena felt really relatable to me, and I just really loved this one. And this one comes out in August, and I think you guys should pick it up. Kind of sad to end this on a bummer, but the last book that I read was The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont, and I did not enjoy this book. I read this book for summer bingo for a hotel novel because majority of this book is set at a hotel, and it was just not my vibe. So what this book essentially is it's talking about the days when Agatha Christie disappeared. So she disappeared for those like 11 days in December, and it's kind of like making up a story as to why she disappeared and what she was doing during that time. I don't think this is historically accurate. I don't think it's trying to be historically accurate. I think it's just supposed to be a work of fiction. But majority of the story was really boring. Like, I just really didn't care. And then at the end, there were some nice like little twists and turns that I did like, but it just wasn't enough to redeem like the rest of the book. It wasn't bad. I just didn't want to read it. And another thing is I was listening on audio and following along, and like the audiobook narrator was just like changing around the words in the sentences, which it like happens, but I feel like if you're an audiobook narrator, like part of your job is to like read what's written. And so it would like trip me up when I was following along because she would like read the words in a different order than they were written, and I didn't like that, which that might be like kind of a picky complaint because a lot of people probably aren't doing both. But I feel like if that's something you want to do, you should be able to do it without like getting flipped around every other page because the narrator is reading the sentences wrong. So this one was not a favorite for me. It was honestly disappointing because I've had this book on my shelf for a while. Like, I really wanted to read it. I thought it sounded so good. But overall, it was honestly just like a miss for me. All in all, I would say that I had a really great reading month. Like I said, my most books I read in a single month. And I really liked a lot of the books that I read this month. So that is a huge win for sure. And yeah, so comment down below and let me know the best book that you read in July, or if there's any of these books that you read and loved, or maybe didn't love, or you have some different opinions. Subscribe to my channel while you're here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Love you!